And it is Thursday, January 5th. Thank you guys all for being here. I know that you have a lot of stuff that you're taking care of as school gets back underway, and we appreciate you guys. And thanks for being willing to spend this hour and share with everyone, and we'll try to get started here and get the ball rolling. Carla, do you see that Galveston Island screen? Awesome. Well, if you need the Galveston promotional video for any reason, as area president or something, you can certainly email Lindsay at ctat.org and she'll get that to you. Again, thank you for being here to the January 5th roundtable. They are recorded, and these Zoom-based sessions are hosted and recorded by CTAT, are always posted on our social media platforms such as YouTube. And so if you do not wish to have your picture displayed on public view, you may wish to participate with your video turned off. Otherwise, your participation serves as consent to your picture being posted via the CTAT social media. For breaking news here in season 3, again, we got Neil deGrasse Tyson telling us that knowledge is on the way. And Foghorn Leghorn would like to say Happy New Year to everyone. I say Happy New Year, boy, like he was talking to the little weasel that stole the eggs. Also, January 5th is National Bird Day. National Bird Day is an annual holiday with 500,000 people who celebrate bird watching and studying birds and other bird-related activities. I put the picture of the American robin there because that happens to be my favorite bird. They're in the area and they have a bright orange chest and they're just really fun to watch. Beautiful bird. Jane Hathaway on Beverly Hillbillies was a bird watcher. Also, Miss Anderson shares that it's also National Whipped Cream Day. I did not know that, but that's probably good for some of you to know. Also on this day in American history in 1781, during the American Revolutionary War, Richmond, Virginia was burned by British naval forces led by Benedict Arnold. And we know that that really didn't work out all that well for Benedict Arnold in the long run. In 1914, the Ford Motor Company announced an 8-hour workday and minimum daily wages of $5 in salary plus bonuses. So sometimes when we think about how little we're making, we might think about the Ford employees back at the turn of the century. And in 1933, the construction of the Golden Gate Bridge began in San Francisco. We did have some famous birthdays for January 5th. Walter Mondale, who one time was the Vice President of the United States under Jimmy Carter. Ted Lang, who many of you may know, who was the famous bartender on the hit series Love Boat. And then Pamela Sue Martin, who played Nancy Drew in the Nancy Drew and the Harder Boy Mysteries, one of my favorite shows when I was a wee tiny tot. And then the great Robert Duvall was born on January 5th. And as Robert Duvall worked with the soldiers in Apocalypse Now to find a place to surf in Vietnam, that's what these roundtable discussions are good for, is everybody working together. And we certainly appreciate all of you being here and being willing to share your thoughts and your experiences with other CTE leaders in the state. Just to quickly go over the programming that CTAT is involved in, kind of the highlights. The Next Gen administrators, we just closed out the Next Gen registration for this school year, but we will open up again in the fall of 2023. Of course, these monthly roundtables, the professional conferences like the one coming up in Galveston at the end of the month. And of course, we're still doing district program evaluations, and we're going to have those wrapped up through the spring. So if you're wanting a program evaluation, we probably have about 3 spots left for this school year. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Every time we post a YouTube video, that bell will notify you if you are subscribed. And certainly on the Connect CTAT forum, find those very useful. You can find everything from how to keep flies out of your ag barn to finding curriculum for your business, marketing, and finance courses. This is a great place to share resources and information with other members. If you haven't signed up for the TEA CTE newsletter, I strongly encourage that you do that. Go to the Texas Education Agency CTE website, click on the newsletter tile, and then you can sign up for that today. Don't forget that January 30th through February 1st is going to be our CTAT Leadership Conference in Galveston. No, everyone's really looking forward to that. There are a few hotel spaces available at the Holiday Inn, which is right there by the conference center. And we're looking to have somewhere between 600 and 700 members, which is probably going to be pretty close to a record for the midwinter. And Lindsay says that the hotel situation is fluid because you have cancellations and they open rooms up. So make sure that you keep checking for rooms if you're having a tough time finding a place to stay for the conference. We want to thank everyone for stepping up with presentations. We had so many presentations and so much quality that we had to basically move some of the presentations to the summer. And so we really appreciate you stepping up because the quality of the conference really depends on the quality of the presentations. And if they're as good as last midwinters, then we're going to have a great conference because I believe that was one of the best ones we ever had. Jennifer Edenfield just sent a message in there. Don't forget, and I will put this into the chat and we'll send this out in a follow-up email that if you're interested in playing in the CTAT golf tournament, it will be at Moody Gardens, January 29th. That's Sunday. We'll break up in teams of 4. It'll be about $55 per person. We'll check in at 1 o'clock. So everyone needs to be there at 1 o'clock. And we'll start teeing off at 2 o'clock. We're really looking forward to it. It's just going to be 9 holes. And I promise you, if it's anything like the summer, we'll have every range of person playing in the scramble. So don't worry about your ability level. Just come out there and have a good time. Again, the CTAT golf tournament will be Sunday, January 29th at Moody Gardens. Check-in is at 1 o'clock. One of the things that we're promoting, and we will be throughout the entire spring, will be the summer conference and how we're really targeting the teacher groups, especially those that don't have permanent homes at other conferences. We have contracted with Pam Cook with the Technology Students Association and also with Diana. I should just had her name right there. Rick, if you're on here, the BPA state advisor, and they are contracted to recruit specifically topics aimed at the tech ed, tech apps top teachers and the business marketing and finance. And of course, we always have good topics for teaching and training, and we're combining it with our law teachers. Instead of having a separate conference, we're having law come in too. So we have a lot of meaningful teacher targeted presentations. We're shooting for 1,000 people at this year's conference, and I think targeting these groups is going to get us there. Again, like we said, the Next Gen Administrators has registration is closed until the fall of 2023. If you've subscribed to the CTAT YouTube channel, then you've seen that we've done some reviews for the IBCs. Most notably would be through ICEV and NOCTI because they had the most that entered the new IBC list. And I encourage you, if you plan on using the NOCTI certification, I was talking with Miss Tennyson and Miss Vance at Montgomery ISD, and they've started to implement the NOCTI, and it's not just a 1, 2, 3 deal. It takes a lot of setup and takes several. Um, um, it's a learning opportunity not for the schools, because this certification is new to the school, but also it's a learning situation for NOCTI too, because this is the first time they've had to issue certifications in Texas public schools. So if you plan on using the NOCTI certification, I encourage you to get started now. The finance plus CTE joint workshops that we've been doing with TASBO, they have been a huge success. We had over 120 attendees at each of the workshops, which gets us close to 400 is what we've had so far. And we're adding additional workshops that the information should come out next week for El Paso and the Lubbock Amarillo area in the spring. So watch for details, and we'll get you that registration information for El Paso and the Lubbock Amarillo area. Also, Sherry is a little bit under the weather today, and PT, if you're by any chance on here, do you have any updates from the TEA Leadership Committee?
Yes, sir. Really, what they talked about was the JET grant, and that was and we kind of mentioned that the time before, but other than that, there really wasn't anything new that they'd spoken about. So.
Boy, this is a good time to congratulate all those folks that got onto the JET grant. I received a news article from the Longview News Journal that told about all the East Texas schools, but I know they've been given out all over the state. So congratulations to all of you that received one of those. PT, anything coming up on the leadership committee? That you
no,
know
sir,
of?
not right now. No, sir.
Hey, sometimes no news is good news.
Yes, sir. I agree.
Hey, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Also, Ms. Wheeler, do you had said that you had a couple of items on the school safety? Are you still on?
I am, yes, sir.
Oh, very good. Thank you.
The school safety standards grant opened yesterday, and if y'all aren't familiar with that, that's at least $200,000 that each district is going to receive to meet the new school safety standards that are still kind of being fleshed out. But with that, it includes things like fencing and specific standards that you have to meet if you're installing fencing or if your fencing is below. So if you're looking at your facilities, there may be some funds there available through your district to upgrade those. So you might ask people about that.
Ms. Wheeler, do you have to have gone through the audit in order to get the grant, or is this a proactive deal as well?
No, you do not have to have done your audit to receive the grant. Every district has been allocated at least $200,000. Larger districts will get slightly more than that, but every district has been allocated. They do still have to submit the grant application through the traditional methods, but every school district has been allocated from the state level.
Well, that's good information, because that's non-competitive. You fill it out, you get it and use it. If on the audit scene, if you could rate the CTE safety protocols from 1 to 10, 10 being dead solid safe and 1 being completely open, how would you rate kind of the way you're seeing schools?
It varies school to school. Coming from the TEA school safety area, their hopes are that with these funds, with these grant funds, that all school districts are going to meet the set school standards that are being, like I said, they were open for comment back in December, and they're taking the feedback that was received through that comment period to finalize the school safety standards. And I can put a link to both the proposed school safety standards and then a link for how to find the grant in the chat for everybody as well.
Thank you so much. And is that on the Texas Grant Opportunities, or is that another site? Do you know?
It is through the TEA Texas Grants. It's a state level grant.
Got you. Very good. So if for some reason you missed the link and you end up watching the video, then you can find that school safety grant on the Texas Grant Opportunities page. Thank you, Ms. Wheeler. All right, awesome. That's good news. And other updates, of course, we've talked about this 2 times in a row, but districts are eligible to count the military enlistments if they do get the DD4 form completed and filled out. And of course, that must have all the signatures on it from the student and the enlistment officer. And you can get those from the student, and then you'll be able to submit those via the secure upload in the spring of 2024. But I'd go ahead and start collecting those now. One of the things that we've been going over and over and over and over in all of our workshops is the proposed industry-based certifications programs of study phase-in. And so if you're looking at this, this is the old document. It still kind of applies, but there has been some adjustments made to that. They were supposed to give us the final determination in November or not, but it's still in the proposed phase, but they have made some changes. And so the IBCs that are sunsetted will continue to generate CCMR credit, but the campus will be limited based on the students who only qualify for CCMR credit via a sunsetted IBC. So for example, if you're using OSHA or Google Analytics, one of the sunsetted IBCs, then those are going to be limited to the number of students that you can use for CCMR credit. And it's going to be 5 graduates or 20% of the graduates, whichever is higher. So if you have 100 graduates, then you're only going to be able to use 20 of those sunsetted IBCs. The state is telling us this is going to affect a very small number of campuses. However, there are a few schools out there that are using up to 50 and 60% of their IBCs that are sunsetted that won't even be available in 2 years. So if you are using a sunsetted IBC, then you're only going to be able to use that for 20% or 5 of your graduates, whichever is higher. Also, the transition plan for programs of study. Yes, Parker asked if that's in effect this year. Yes. And also the transition plan to integrate program of study requirements with IBCs has been deferred for 1 year. And here's what that means. And so basically everything has been moved down 1 year. So instead of having to have IBCs aligned with a level 2 course, that requirement is going to be applied with the 2024 graduates. So the 2023 graduates will count if they just have an IBC. It doesn't matter if it's aligned with the program of study course or not. Then the 2025 graduates must be a concentrator in an aligned program of study. And then the 2026 graduates must be a completer in an aligned program of study. Sammy says that's good news. I agree, Sammy. Also, Ms. Wheeler's just posted into the chat the school safety link. And here's the people in your regions that if you want to contact a question with a very generic question, these are the folks that you contact that are associated with your region service centers. And we've kind of talked about this 3 or 4 times, is that don't forget this year you're reporting earned certifications, passed test but not earned certifications, and attempted but not passed certifications. So you'll have to be reporting all of those 3. So make sure that you develop good internal bookkeeping to keep up with this data. There's a new industry-based certifications list that's on the TEA website, and that's updated. I would just set my calendar to check that monthly because those IBC lists are being updated And so far it's been monthly. Every time I think that that's going to be the last update, a new one comes out. Also, don't forget that the industry-based certification has a frequently asked questions, and you can go to that website, and that is good information to have. And they have one for just the IBCs, and they have one for IBC reimbursement as well. And the crosswalks were updated October 20th. So make sure that you're constantly reviewing the TEA website, looking for the updated crosswalks. They tend to always add, for example, they've added the programs of study to the EMT certification, for example. It used to just be with emergency services, and now it's been added to multiple health science programs of study. So make sure that you're always checking the IBC program of study crosswalk. And legislative information, I think Robin told you last time that there is the legislative priorities task force that CTAT has built or has added members to, and that is comprised of 2 members from each area, and they help set the priorities. And you can go on to the CTAT advocacy website, and you just go to home and then advocacy and then priorities, and you'll be there and you can see what the priority list is. And of course, those are all on the list, and this is what that page will look like when you get to it. Also, we're in the 88th Texas legislature. Robin just posted the advocacy priorities website link if you want to copy and paste that. And we're in the 88th legislature. And also Robin has started today, I think. Robin, you may want to talk about this in a second, but adding a bill watch. So any bill that applies even loosely to career and technical education, we are posting on the CTAT Legislative Watch website. So make sure that you follow that. And here's just a couple of quick look at the bills that have been filed thus far. House Bill 535 authorizes the State Board of Education to approve programs of study, IBCs for accountability, and adds a pre-apprenticeship course as an indicator. And prior to that, I think TEA has had the ability to approve programs of study. House Bill 651 is related to ROTC, and if House Bill 651 passes, that will move ROTC under career and technical education. Therefore, a program of study will have to be developed and be aligned with an industry-based certification. And I did just some quick math on that. I went and looked up the enrollment for ROTC in grades 9 through 12. And if you take that and you put the FTE formula to it, and you use the 1.35 multiplier, there's no way to put the program of study multiplier on it because they're not in program of study yet. But if you just use the 1.35 multiplier, which is kind of an average, then you get just over $66 million. So this will be an expensive bill if passes. It will have a fiscal note. And then House Bill 323 moves fine arts from the enrichment curriculum to the foundation curriculum. Sometimes I think you better be careful what you ask for if I was fine arts. And then Senate Bill 86 raises the basic allotment from $6,160 to $7,075. And of course, that would not change the career tech formula, but you would do your multiplier instead of taking your FTEs times 6160. If Senate Bill 88 passes, then you would take your FTEs times 7,075 times the program study level multiplier. So that would be a partial increase in CTE funding. Also, our old friend, Mr. Vocational High School Plan bill hasn't been formally presented yet or filed yet, but it has been floated out there, and many of you have seen a copy of this. And what it basically does is create a vocational high school diploma plan and a vocational high school diploma. And The executive committee has met on this as well as the legislative task force, and Robin's been going to areas discussing it. And kind of the general consensus is we don't want any part of it. And so there's two ways you can be against it, which CTAT, the executive committee and the task force has decided to just be against it, or you could jump on board and try to fix it. But I'm not even sure if this is fixable. The language in there is just hideous because it uses the word vocational throughout. It uses terms like industrial technology, industrial arts. It's using language from the 70s. It's just the language in the bill is hideous. And I think the thought behind it may be noble, and it may have a good purpose behind it, but it's very poorly written, and that's my opinion. And that's all it is. But anyway, so if you want to see a copy of this bill draft, you can certainly email me, and I'll send you the PDF of it. Of course, the State Board of Education, we sent this out talking about doing away with career investigations and college and career readiness and replacing it with the flight plan course. And we did go down there and testify against this. But one of the items that we were testifying against was the fact that you were replacing what essentially, because of the service ID numbers, 5 courses with 1 course. And they assured us in the meeting that there would be multiple service ID numbers. My thought on it is, why not just change the teach to one of the courses if you want, because the teach were very similar anyway to college and career readiness. But anyway, that looks to be moving ahead. So if you have input on that, you can go to the State Board of Education and go to public comment on that, and get the question, how many PIMSCO will we give TEA moves for a flight plan? And I think what they said at the hearing was at least 2. And so we'll see. Now, keep in mind, it's kind of a moot point because you don't really get high school credits, and there's no funding tied to this because it is strictly a middle school CTE course. Don't forget that also on the TEA grant opportunities page, there are new grants out there for starting CTSOs, and $25,000 will do a good job. It'll pay a teacher stipend, it'll pay some dues. So go on there. If you're wanting to start a new CTSO, go to the TEA grant opportunities page. Let's make sure that we root on our TCU Horned Frogs as they take on those peach eaters from Georgia on the 9th. So give those guys all you can. And I know that we say this all the time, but I can't say it too often. Thank you for being a part of this and helping all of the everyone in the state by sharing your knowledge and wisdom in these roundtables. They really make the year. So I'm going to stop sharing. And are we back in gallery mode? Awesome. Michelle Baker at Humble is a peach eater from Georgia. So y'all don't say anything too bad about them. So what are your thoughts? I would kind of, we've talked about it a million times, but what are your thoughts and concerns about the ROTC bill if it passes? Anybody?
What would the IBC be for that program of study? That's my question.
I'm not sure, but there's a lot of folks on here that have ROTC programs.
Yeah, what program would it go into?
Yeah, because I mean, they do have a Cyber Patriot program and things like that, but that's just lessons being taught within their ROTC program. I think they'd have to really develop that out for it to be worthwhile. And if it's a duplication of our, Cyber Patriot, cybersecurity, I don't know what the value would be for us. And then look at the funding, because I know that they're partially funded by the Department of Defense. They're going to have to flesh out who's responsible for what.
Good points.
But I
Mark, I
think-
would concur. The physical note for districts of our size would be, because we have one, at least one in every campus.
And Tally, I think that you would, I mean, CTE would get the funding.
Right. And I
But-
just don't know if the physical note would
Yeah.
maintain to the level of some of their required supplies and things. And
Gotcha.
I agree, it would be whether federal funding maintained. Their salaries are very different. So when you start to intertwine that, it's a very different component.
Well, I think your legislators need to hear about this. When the priority task force looked at this, it was a pretty, as a matter of fact, it didn't even make the list of, it became a low priority. Tally, you chaired that committee. And so, you know, it was a low priority for the task force that they came out with. So CTE is not going to be pushing it really at all. But if it's going to be a big deal at your district, I think your legislatures need to hear about it, plus or minus.
What I see a lot in our district, Mark, is a lot of our OTC programs, you know, they do have, as someone mentioned in the chat, we do have drones, we do have cybersecurity, we've got, you know, various areas, and they tend to have as good, if not better, equipment than our regular CT courses, because it's a different pot of funding for them. What they lack though is the instruction, because they're coming to our teachers for assistance in getting those courses taught and participating in, you know, competitions for the students, because that's where the hands-on really comes into play. So I just think that, I know that they've merged the two up at the federal level, I guess, but at our level, there's a lot more that has to be looked at and understood before you can simply say these two pieces fit together.
Yeah, I mean, though, and I'm telling you, Mr. Rodriguez, when I talk to folks, it's about half and half. Half the people think it'd be a great deal, and half the people don't. And, hey, Jason, you said something kind of interesting in the chat. Do you mind sharing that about the completion not being a standard?
Yeah, you bet. This is just my thinking, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but since it's a military readiness indicator that they're accomplishing and not the career readiness, couldn't they really establish the criteria however they want? And it doesn't necessarily have to be the same as the program of study completion. They can make it 3 levels or 4 levels of JROTC completion, whether or not they include a certification. We get that mindset because we're used to the readiness piece, but for the military readiness, I mean, they could probably establish it without a certification, because for ROTC, it's pretty much null and void. That's just my thinking. Maybe I'm wrong. I was wrong once.
Well, and help me here, because I don't know, but currently, if you finish an ROTC program, you're not declared military ready. You're just you're just finishing an ROTC program. The only way you get that military is if you do the DD4. You know, if you actually enlist. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so if go ahead.
That might be what it goes to, is that's their IBC, you know, that when they finish that 4 year, then that's the, and you know, expectation that they're going to do the DD4. Personally, at my district, we've been talking about it, you know, just like we, you know, we're preparing students for college, we're preparing them to be job ready. Just because a student completes a program of study doesn't mean they're going to college. Doesn't mean that they're going to go follow that career path. It's the same thing with military. They're going to be in 4 years of ROTC. Then to me, that should be counted as I'm military ready in case I was to go on and go forth.
But the ROTC is not meant to be a recruiting entity, that they're actually forbidden to recruit. So
Understood.
And if you're like us, it's really not an indication. The numbers are very small that go on from that program. We looked at that because when we defined what military ready was a long time ago, we thought of that also. But not a lot of those kids go on.
And I get that. And that's that goes along with not a lot of kids go on to college. Not a lot of kids go on to do a lot of the things that we're trying to get them to do. So I'm not saying they should recruit. I'm saying that if a student finishes a full ROTC program, then it should say, hey, I've completed, I have committed, I have done what I need to do to potentially be military ready. Just like we're trying to prepare kids to be potentially job ready, potentially college ready. We can't control what any of them do once they cross that, graduation line and they leave our presence.
And Justin Misseldine just put on there that he thinks that NOCTI may have a certification that aligns with ROTC. So I guess we'll see, first thing they have to do is put it in our CTE, then whoever has control over it will have to develop a program of study, whether that's TEA or the SBOE, and then whoever has control over the IBCs will have to align IBCs with that new program of study. So it's not a slam dunk.
Well, and if they're innovative courses, you'll have to teach them for free until they approve them.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody's going to jump all over that, aren't they?
Mark, if I can interject, and there's probably a few districts on the call that went through this. Comal ISD went through a process last year at the federal level. The military developed a full program of cybersecurity. We have JROTC kids that participate in Cyber Patriot. And we were one of the 4 districts in the state of Texas approached to bring on cyber through JROTC and eliminate it outside of CTE. It was an ordeal. We probably spent 10 full work days meeting with these folks, doing all the things. And Tally Jo, like you said, there is a disconnect because they have all these rules. Like we were going to have to hire 3 more teachers to teach these courses. I'm like, we only have 1 in CTE. Why is it fair that you get 3 in there and their salaries are so much higher? And then we were going to have to pay them. We were the only district out of the 4 that said, we're not doing this. So they have a full, I'm not going to lie, their curriculum was good. It was ready to roll, but it didn't match our standards. They weren't Texas standards. They were federally built courses. They were good, and they were going to offer all this training. So the other 3 districts that are doing it, maybe they'll eventually share and let us know how that's going. But we ultimately agreed not to do it. And we took some slack for it because of the training that we decided we weren't going to take. And it was a funding problem because they weren't going to be CTE courses and they weren't going to fund all of the equipment. It was crazy. So I think there's more behind this than just what's happening that we're seeing right now. I think this has been a work in progress for a while.
This is going to be an interesting one to watch because of all the ones currently that they're talking about that impact CTE, this is the one that has a fiscal note, a true fiscal note. So,
well, and the other thing, and I didn't think about this till Renee was telling us about her story. Your ROTC teachers are not credentialed in most of these areas.
I know.
They're simply teaching the courses as or teaching the content as an add-in. So when they're doing cybersecurity or drone technology, et cetera, it's just an add-in. So they wouldn't even be credentialable. Most of them would not be credentialable under CT standards.
Right. And that was one of my issues when we were meeting with them is they kept saying they were going to hire these people to come in and teach because they were going to hire the ones with the credentials. Said, but you can't use our CTE courses if you're not CTE certified.
Exactly.
It was an ordeal. Finally, I got people to realize this won't work. Like it sounds great, but on our side with PEAMS, it's not going to work.
No.
We're going to lose right now doing this. Anyway. It's already hard to find those teachers anyway.
Yeah. Those are the hard teachers to find right now.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the ones who went back into we lost several of those teachers once the pandemic hit because they went right back into industry. They have no problem finding those jobs. It's near impossible to find computer science teachers, etc. right now.
You rarely get stepped on by an elephant. It's always the bee that bites you. That means it's the little things, Mr. Mackey. Did you catch that? Very good. Well, it's interesting, and I encourage you to, make sure that your legislator is aware, whether you're for or against it. I see Miss Harrell on here. I don't know if I know a lot of times people are watching, but, Waco has been a big advocate of adding it. There's a lot of districts that are huge advocates of adding it. And so it's going to be an interesting one to watch. Any others you would like to discuss, or any topics coming back into the new year? We're looking forward to seeing everyone at conference.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, just a couple of things. Back to the being military ready. I mean, if the Army accepts those kids, and I don't know the right ranking terms, but they're higher than a usual private if they come in before ROTC. So that sounds to me like if they're giving them a leg up from every other recruit, then they are military ready. That would be my point. But second to that, we have ROTC under CTE right now and not generating funds for them. So I'm all for it.
Right. And Ms. Bartlett, there's a lot of people that hold that view out there. Like I say, when you talk to people just anecdotally without a survey, it's really about half and half.
And I think if we leave it like it is, it's going to be a great thing. But I think when we talk about, like Michael was saying, you're trying to take over certain if it's its own program of study, I think it's gonna be great. But I think that was not the original intent when ROTC might, I don't think, personally, after going through what I went through last year, I don't think that was the original intent of it.
And I agree. I'm not against bringing ROTC under CTE, but there are so many unknowns right now. I think that there's a lot of blanks that need to be filled in. For example, money from DoD. Right now, districts who have ROTC under CTE, they're probably not, I don't know, I can't speak for sure, but I'm going to guess that they're not paying the military teachers in salaries. They may not be paying for their materials and resources. They may be overseeing and assisting with the program of study and helping them, set up the competitions and ensuring that they're using the equipment appropriately, things like that. But I don't think that we'd even be allowed legally to purchase equipment, materials, or pay for those salaries for any of those teachers right now. So, with all those unknowns, it's still a good idea, but a lot needs to be fleshed out before you can simply say it's going to slide right into place and we can take over day one without any hiccups.
Awesome conversation. Thank you guys for sharing your thoughts.
So I'd like to go back to the middle school courses. I know there's been some chatter on the CTAT chat about that, but do we know, I know the public comment's going to close at the end of end of January, but do they know when they might say yay or nay to that, or did I miss that?
Well, I think it would be scheduled to be yay or nay at the next state board meeting, and then it would be implemented as of August 1st, 2023.
Okay.
I know that's when it would be implemented.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that it was August. I just didn't know how soon I didn't know when the next meeting was or what. Anyway. Does anybody else have a thought? They're just going to replace that flight plan with the college and career readiness class? Is that kind of the plan?
So that's not the original. So Mark and I had a lot of digging with State Board of Education on this one.
Okay.
So the original concept is they want flight plan to be designed for a year. So what we find though, and probably if y'all read chat, you can't define middle school courses in that way. So Mark did a wonderful job of representing us at CTAT. And so he did. He spent some time and did some research. We spent some time with the original author of the state board. And so one component that he really, really wanted embedded, which is probably what you're going to see for the flight plan and its name and all those things, is that it truly outlines an academic plan. What we all call personal graduation plans, what we do daily, and all of those things, is that it's outlined in his component as an academic plan. It's written in the actual TEKS. And so when defined by the state board, they want it to be a year. That's our struggle. That's our struggle for us here at Conroe ISD, is the year kind of messes with our master schedule. My junior high principals are a little up in arms. So we've actually been doing the work on that. We looked at general employability. My principals don't necessarily want to see a large influx of high school courses. They want them to be well defined. And so we've used that one too. They're going to make that final decision, but we're moving forward with the thought that it's going to be flight plan.
And the deal with it is they're not going to force you to teach it because it's not in the mandatory curriculum. And then the second thing is everything that they're wanting to do in flight plan can currently be done in career investigations or college and career readiness or general employability skills. But when we testified at the state board meeting, we told them, said, well, if you're wanting this to be a course that districts will use, you're going to have to give it a high school credit and apply funding. And I felt like I felt like I just polluted the punch bowl when I said that, because nobody was wanting to hear that. And so it's as far as practical application, it's going to be just like the college and career readiness course.
Except for the fact that CCR is a semester and flight plan is a year, right? Am I right?
Well, it's like Tally Joe was saying, they really can't mandate that anyway.
Okay.
On the junior high course,
I'm in a district where our students at middle school are required to take college and career readiness. So it doesn't, whatever, it's just, that's a semester class for us right now.
Right.
So that's the and we had course selection back in October. So, we're done with course selection and now we're trying to figure out what we're doing.
Right.
So I think the concern for us, and Mark can kind of reiterate some of this, is that we kind of designate ours out by cluster. So we lump a cluster and we define it through the careers and the investigation by cluster. So we, in our model that we were moving forward, we had already lined this out. It would have 5 and use all 5 PIMS codes. I will tell you, I did some work with our PIMS department. Middle school doesn't care what the PIMS code is.
Because
So
they're not
just
earning,
have to have a PIMS. They just have to have it.
they're not earning a credit. They're not, their CTE indicator is going to be it's going to be the lowest one.
Mhm.
And so it's I
But
think
even PIMS doesn't care though. So like one of mine is local credits don't define TEKS, which kind of often get you in another pickle because you don't really have a framework, right? And so one thing is we want to stay within those TEKS driven courses, and they're like, it's not even going to give us an error. It's not going to give us an attendance check problem. Mark and I talked about that. So the only concern on our part, and you guys can probably do this with your student management system, is if you use the PIMS code in the same year, it causes issues within the grading system. So we will not use the same PIMS code for the same student in more than 1 year. So if we get a set, for example, if we get flight plan and we get 2 of them, we'll have a 7th grade model and an 8th grade model, and no kid will be enrolled in those, outside those to not cause an internal system problem.
But again, that's open for public comment. So share your concern. I'm against it because I don't think it was needed. I think they could have made a simple change to the college and career readiness TEKS and roll on. But if they're not, because it's not a mandated course and it's not for funding, very few people
Well,
are going to teach it anyway.
It looks like it's definitely going to go and be approved. But what would really be helpful is if everybody jumped on public comment to say, change the name from flight plan to something that will not confuse counselors, parents, or students. That would be helpful, is to recommend calling it something else.
Like college and career readiness.
Uh-huh. Yep, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the guy that was the state board member that was, he had a noble cause for doing it. And it's like a lot of things, but they just don't understand the practical application of it when it gets down. But it's done with a noble cause. So I think everyone ought to know that too. Robin, do you have any other legislative stuff to share?
Well, so on the basic allotment, the last time it went up, they adjusted the indirect cost to balance out CTE so that CTE would not get a raise. And so if we have another bill that gets filed that says, well, we'll increase the direct cost allowance to 65%, for example, it could change. So having the increase in the basic allotment is good, but just be warned, the last time that happened, they didn't want CTE to have an increase. And so they had the SBE adjust that indirect cost allotment.
And Robin, if I remember right, it nearly doubled the last time, right? It was when they did the basic allotment, it went from somewhere around 3,200 to 61.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would have been a big, I think that's why they adjusted the allotment, because it was going to be such a huge increase in special allotments. What are your thoughts on that 65%, Robin? You think that's got a shot?
Well, that Representative Gates with that vocational high school diploma sure wants to work hard for CTE. If only he would take on raising ours to 65%, he might get it.
Hey, Justin Missildine, if you're the link for the website is just the SBOE. And if you'll email me, I'll send you all the direct info for the flight plan. But the website is just the State Board of Education, and all that flight plan information is on the SBOE website. I'm sorry for not making that clear.
Well, and if we are successful at having a bill that increases the cost allotment, it would also have a fiscal note. So, so there is that. We would need to be prepared to advocate for that.
Yeah,
and I know you can, since 90% or more goes to salaries. You don't have much left for consumables.
And it has a fiscal note in what CTE would get, but it wouldn't increase what's going to the district. It would just increase. It would change the mandate and the way that the districts have to spend it, the way I understand it.
You're right. You're right.
Lisa, thank you for putting that that in there. Lisa, Carr, do you have a web link to that public comment? If you could put that in there, it looks like you're looking at the website. Ms. Brewer.
Yes, I'm working on that right now.
From what we know, flight plan will not be mandatory. They'd take legislative action, right, Robin?
I don't think they can, Mark, because it's already, the process of is already mandatory. So it's mandatory you educate the child. It's not mandatory the courses that you use.
And it's mandatory that you select an endorsement. It's mandatory that you do a graduation plan. So all they're wanting to do is change when.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And Lisa Carr just posted in the website the JOP form to make public comment on the flight plan. So if you want to copy and paste that. Thanks, Lisa.
So
Lisa's already got her Perkins grant done for next year.
So pardon my ignorance if I don't say this correctly or if I don't know something, but so if flight plan goes through, which means it's taking the place of and doing away with the college and career readiness, correct, and the career investigation. And
Correct.
although we're saying it's not required, but most of our districts are doing those. We require that our students go through them. Are they saying we can take then and it's embedded in some of our other courses we already offer, and like some of our principals classes, we use those. We were just making sure we cover those points that they're wanting us to make sure we do. Is that what we're trying to get at here?
Miss Anderson, you'd be surprised at how few schools really do offer those. It's only about a third, and the total student count for all the career investigations and college career readiness was only about 20,000, that ballpark. So it's most districts, the other 2/3 are offering CTE classes for high school credit at the junior high.
When we have a mix, and so and I've not taught obviously at every school district, but every school district I've been at has done the career investigations or the college and career readiness. I've not been at a school district that didn't. So I'm in that group, that percentage. And so I was just kind of wondering what we do. We're trying to move to where we have more of the high school credit courses at the junior high, but we still offer the career investigations right now. So I'm just trying to get my brain wrapped around what I need to do at the district since I'm new here where I'm at right now.
I think you are correct, and you're really online to probably what your processes are. So what it says is law says that you have to educate the student in those components, right? Career investigation, endorsement, personal graduation plan, what's supposed to be on the personal graduation plan. So where you embed that, you can build your own course, it says. So if you're already really far along, you could simply take the TEKS of flight plan and embed it for your college and career readiness course. For us, if you just teach CCR, I don't see it as this big red flag that's going to cause a problem, right? So if you just have CCR and then you move to like an 8th grade model with principals courses, it's when you do 7th grade or 6th grade model of investigating careers, and then you move to college and career readiness, and you have different trajectory points of investigating careers because you're going from 5 PEMS codes to, 2, maybe 2. We're hoping the maybe still stays as the flag. So I think that's where my concern was. If college and career readiness is your option, if you highlight the TEKS and Mark has done them, you're really just seeing a couple of added objective statements there.
And you have 2 courses. The general employability skills is innovative, and the student to industry connection is innovative. And I recommend if you're not wanting to start a program of study at the 8th grade, those are 2 really good generic courses that a kid can get a high school credit, and you can earn CTE funding 1.1 way. So,
Mark, this is Tracy Andrews in El Paso. So when this all came out and they mandated that a 7th or 8th grader needed to take this, we had a STEAM Academy that was going to embed, and it was allowed that they embed the TEKS in courses. So that could be why the numbers are so low and you're not, in those courses, because it's embedded, for example, in a PLTW course at a middle school for us, at least in one of the 2.
And Miss Andrews, that's what Callie Joe was saying. Everybody or 90+% of the schools do just like you do. They're doing those components. They just embed them in other classes. And in Project Lead the Way, a lot of the schools that use that will use that gateway course. And so, yeah, that's what Callie Joe was saying. You can still embed that in other courses, just the way we understand it as it is today. You can still embed those components into other courses, just like what you're doing.
No, I don't think anybody's policing that, but as long as we know that and it's good for them. I mean, they should, or use, career modules from, Paxton Patterson. If anybody's using those are insanely good, for exposure to the career and really engaging. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That's a great point. Any other topics? Those are 2 good ones, 2 hot topics too. No one had a big brouhaha about moving the alignment to program of study back a year. I thought that was a good thing. I know Sammy cheered it. he gets to work on his algorithm another year.
I have a question to see if anybody knows off the top of their head. It looks like we're going to be a district of innovation. So nice. Want to make sure, if we're a district of innovation and we have like somebody come in and teach HVAC of some sort, do I still get weighted funding?
Absolutely.
For those CTE courses, right?
Yes, but you need to make sure that your district of innovation your application says that you can use non-certified CTE teachers to teach CTE courses. Not every one of them says that, but 99% do. Just make sure that yours says that.
Yeah, you have to pick that. We're finally also going through the DOI process, so.
And that's if your board of trustees will allow that to happen in your human resources department, because ours would not allow it and said, either way, you guys are going to have certified teachers in there. So they're going to go through an alternative cert program because we're not going to go down that path.
Cool.
So they were really stringent on that.
It is not 100%, Miss Shear, but most probably do now. I was a late comer to the DOI because I was against it, because what I thought was going to happen is we got all these teachers in there teaching and then DOI just vanishes. Because if every district's a district of innovation, well, how innovative is it? And so, but Marty's kind of talked me down from that ledge, because Marty said it'd take a legislative act and we'd know that way ahead of time. And so
yeah. The biggest pushback we had, no one was concerned. Everybody was excited or supportive on the CTE side, because we go through health science teachers, anyways, and we don't have some others because no one's ever going to come to a district this small for pay scale when they could make money. But they were most concerned. We're actually going to approve it for non-CTE subjects for any teacher. And they were like, well, you're just going to bring any old person off the street to teach math. No, we're not, but so that was our biggest one. But, if I have got an ex-engineer living in town, retired, and I need one more section in an engineering, pathway, that'd be nice.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's gonna be nice. I'm kind of really excited about it. So.
Well, alternative certification is so expensive now.
Right, you're trying to hire somebody and like, we'd like to hire you. Would you spend $5,000 getting certified? Yeah.
Yeah, we'd like to hire you, and it's going to cost you $5,000, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Mark,
Yes, ma'am.
I want to go back to, you were asking if we got any, feedback or pushback on the changes that came out this week. One of our concerns is that not the deferment of the alignment piece, but more or less it's the 2023 accountability, which means the graduates that already graduated, this will affect as far as the 5 or the 20%. And I just don't understand how you can hold a school accountable for something that we didn't even know about at that point. That this is where it's going to be really hard for me to work with my districts on that.
And Miss Hatton, I'm putting that framework that you're discussing. I just put that in the chat. So if you want to know more about the framework that Miss Hatton just spoke, or about the deferment for 1 year, that's all in the chat. I mean, it's I don't know how districts, you're always juggling a cat, it looks like.
My smaller rural schools, that's really going to hurt them. They are I know they say it will only affect a small group, but some of those schools that's all they can do is get them an industry-based certification. They're not getting any of the other CCMR indicators, and they're just doing all that they can to get the one. So I know it's gonna hurt some of mine for sure.
And that, I mean, and what you're saying is exactly why they're doing it, because schools are using it to, even I know some 6A schools that are using it 65% of the time. And I just left a school at the end of the fall semester, a smaller school like you're discussing, probably a 2A school that was close to 88% on industry, but it's going to be only the sunsetted exams are affected. So that'll help a little bit.
So Mark, I think probably one of the biggest components we probably don't realize is the fact that the 88% is gonna be, probably rural schools are gonna be okay, but CCMR being the threshold going from 65 on the scaling score to 88%, it's way more impactful than, and the fact that it is to the class of 2022.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you
Yes.
start
Yeah.
running your data and you start mirroring what your STAR scores and all those components look like, that's a huge impact.
And
Yes, sir.
yeah, this is a funny way to say it, but on the CTE, on our end of it, all we can do is get our kids certification and get them eventually a live program to study. What you're talking about, the superintendents are going to have to get. That's they're going to have to. That's their battle to fight, really.
Well, right now it's my battle because it's part of my role, but
no, I understand what you're saying, but it's self-serving for us to want that number low. But
it is.
it's going to be at district level. The superintendents are going to have to get in there and say this is unfair, which I believe it is unfair.
Well, I mean, because like a lot of school districts, I've been at a school district where we could take care of, we had a grant that took care of paying for dual credit for our students because we were such a low socioeconomic, area. But then I'm at a school district now where the students have to pay out of pocket for dual credit. So CTE becomes the area where there's funds to pay for that. There's funds to pay for this. And so that's why the schools go for that, because they're trying to get that. And the kids can't afford it. You're putting the burden back on the families, when you get to that point where you're okay, you can't do the CTE side, you can't do IBCs. It's like we're learning how to play their game and they don't want us to play their game. So they're going to keep changing it.
Yeah, I agree with you. To me, it looks like you're punishing the schools for being successful at Monopoly.
Exactly that was I just said that to somebody the other day. I said, it's like you have a game and you put the rules out and then someone exceeds in it and now they get unhappy and they change the rules and make it even, it's just hard for me to.
Yeah, we're being punished for doing what they asked us to do to get your kids certified.
I really don't think it's CTE. I think some of it's going to be some of the other areas, like you got your college prep math and English that have a huge following. So when you start to look at your demographics and you start to look at districts, outside your world, if you start to look and see like, why is somebody 25% higher than you? Part of it is they started playing the game really early. And so what it did is it skewed that percentage of expectation of 65%. And so that's where they're saying, okay, well, 65% met, here's where we are, we should be at 88. And so.
And Tally, Mark Parkerson, who's at Region 7, he was telling me when they were doing those CCMR audits, they were really looking at on-ramps courses real heavily, not just IBCs. They were looking at any area in CCMR that increased disproportionately to the state.
And Mark, I don't know if anybody realizes this, but there is actually an audit of data. Has anybody had? I've not personally had one in Conroe, so let's just hope we don't. I've had an MOA, that's enough. But there is an audit of data. When you start to raise a data point 25%, you have to actually, and Lisa probably or Amanda can probably share more from the service center side, you have to actually identify why you increased. And some of them are very valid. And so I just had a district that I'd worked with contact and I was like, wow.
The interesting thing about this is the people that are getting tagged for those right now. They're comparing that they increased between the year of 2020 and the year of 2021. We all know what happened in the year of 2020. People didn't earn industry-based certifications because they were going to test their kids in April and May, and the world shut down in March, and they didn't test. And so all of the plans that they had in place built for that, they went ahead and implemented them in 2021. And so their numbers are excessively different between those 2 years. I understand needing to look at the why behind somebody having a really major increase to see did somebody game the system and not do something legitimate. But if you're comparing 2020 to 2021, that to me is a little crazy because shouldn't have been an expectation for much of anything in 2020. We were just trying to stay afloat.
Lisa, I brought that up. I called the director over that department and I've started asking questions. And I brought that point up and she said that yes, we were correct, but what they did at that point was they took that and compared it to surrounding local schools to see if it was a large gap from that as the average in the area. So I did get that info, but I brought that up.
And Amanda, also in some of the smaller schools that have CTE folks that are engaged, some smaller schools have CTE directors and some don't. And those that do are going to score higher in those categories. It's just, you gotta fox, you got somebody watching that now, so you don't.
It's like there's no real comparison. I mean, you can do some comparison between school districts, but even if they're side by side, because of what you just said, they may not have the staffing or they may not have somebody that put the plans together. So it makes it totally skewed. You can't base that. You're not like measuring apples to apples here. It's apples and oranges.
No doubt about it. Well, before I hit the stop recording, does anyone have a topic they can bring up that they think would benefit the folks that would come back and watch this on YouTube? Well, then go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Christina, actually, my screen says Nicole. I just have one question. So it's been a hot topic of conversation with our upper administration in our districts. So in our district, sorry, but the TAPER report, they were able to get kind of an advance a glance at it before the break. And so now that it's came out under our CTE coherent sequences, for the 2020-2021 school year, there's all zeros there, right? Because they stopped counting the coherent sequence takers. And so I may have missed this at some point, but we knew that this was coming, but apparently TEA's programmers didn't remove that little indicator, so it's showing up all zeros. Well, I don't know, have y'all had conversations in your district? But our upper administration is going crazy that this is a public facing, document and it has all these zeros and the public doesn't really understand that TA took away that coherent sequence taker indicator.
You're the first one I've heard of this, but that would sure be misleading data because 2021 was the last year that was ever supposed to be on anything.
Right, and it's there and ours has zeros all the way across. So I was just wondering if you guys had heard anything from your upper admin or have been having discussions about it.
We need to do a data audit down there and tell them that they went from 65% to zero. Right,
and our accountability compliance person reached out to TEA and they just said that the programmers did not remove it. So they put zeros across. It wasn't removed. So that was all we were able to get from TEA.
I mean, that's what it has to be.
Yeah. So
ours is present on the TAPER as well. We haven't got to the face front yet. We do a different evaluation of the tool for the state board. So we can definitely, you know what I mean? Yeah. We're going to tell that story as well. That's probably the best you can. TAPER's really kind of hard to get them to change.
Right.
And Christina, that information is also on texasschools.gov. It's the exact same information that is on the TAPER report. Okay. And it's also a lot easier to read. texasschools.gov.
Okay, thanks. All right, well, thank you. I just wanted to know if if anyone had brought this up to you guys or if y'all had any discussions about it. I mean, it kind of is what it is, and that's what I've been telling our admin people, but didn't know if anyone else had some info on it. So thanks.
Well, that might have caused me a stroke if I would have seen it.
Well,
Yeah.
it did.
I don't have
I got
more.
lots of messages over the break.
I got messages too about it. And I communicated, that it was auto coding, it was being reported differently. I assumed, because they're still pulling information on kids being completers and all those kinds of things, I assumed there still would be that information there, although it wasn't counting towards anything, at least at this point. So I was kind of surprised to see all those zeros as well.
Well, that data aligned with what used to be a code 2. And so that was a coherent sequence taker that aligned with a specific course that aligned with an industry of study. So they had the service ID numbers aligned with code 2s. So when code 2s, all the code 2s graduated, then all that number just went to 0 because there are no code 2s anymore.
Right.
Mark, the only thing I would bring up is related to something that came out in a CTE newsletter today from TEA, which was changes to the Educational Aid 1 certification. I'm not well versed in what maybe those changes were, but I did print it out, so everybody, if you're wanting to look at that, it looks to me like it became a little bit clearer and maybe a little more easy to understand exactly how it works as far as like courses that are required. But they did put that out today. I got it in an email. So
okay, and I'm going to
They actually expanded the courses that you could identify.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
So that's
true. I did
huge.
notice there were some more that I hadn't seen before, but I remember when all this first started for the educational aid, it was like you had a certain set of like 4 classes you had to take, and now it's kind of condensed a little bit. So in regards to just type of class, but I just wanted everybody to kind of be aware that was sent out today.
And they added the program of study for early learning and not just teaching and training, right?
Yeah.
And
Which is great.
Miss Anderson, everyone, if you want to see what Miss Anderson was talking about, I just posted the PDF to that CTE newsletter, and I have it didn't come to it's on there now, but that wasn't out when I was putting together the slides. Thank you so much. That came out today. That's hot off the press. So make sure that you subscribe to that TEA newsletter. Good catch. Anyone else have thank you, Christina, for adding that. And I'm sure a lot, at least, there were 10 or 12 people that were in the same boat you were. Okay, I'm going to stop recording, but before I do, thank you again for being here and being a part of this January roundtable. Our next roundtable will be in Galveston. We'll be looking out at the Freightliners as we're having our next roundtable. So we look forward to seeing everyone in Galveston, and thank you for being a part of this one.